voters in Florida are headed to the polls in President Trump's own backyard. Democrats hope to notch a win in the special state house election for a Palm Beach district that includes the president's Mar-a-Lago residence. Republican John Maples, who has President Trump's endorsement, faces Democratic business owner Emily Gregory. President Trump voted by mail in this special election, even as he has sought to limit mail-in voting with legislation and has publicly decried it for years. Listen.
You will never have an honest election if you have mail-in, and it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected.
The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting. They went to all mail-in voting, so they have automatically crooked elections. And we can't have that. Corrupt mail-in ballots. We're the only country in the world that does it that way. Corrupt as hell. Brought to my attention today that we're the only country that does mail-in voting. Mail-in voting means mail-in cheating. I call it mail-in cheating. And we got to do something about it.
All right, let's go live to CNN's Randy Kay. She's on the scene for us in Florida right now. What are you hearing on the ground where you are, Randy?
It's been interesting, Wolf. As you said, today's election is between Republican John Maples and Democrat Emily Gregory. She's a business owner, a military spouse, and a first-time candidate. He is a former council member from a nearby town. But it's important to note here, Wolf, that President Donald Trump won this district in 2024 by 11 points. And so the question is, how much of a factor will he be in this race? As you said, the Democrats are certainly hoping to flip this seat from red to blue. That would just be adding to a string of nationwide victories. And we were able to confirm that President Donald Trump did vote by mail, according to the Palm Beach County records. Now, as you know, yesterday he called mail-in voting mail-in cheating. So it's interesting that we were able to confirm that he did vote by mail. He is one of 180,000 residents here in District 87 that can vote today in this special election. There are others that voted by mail, others that took part in early voting. But the White House has said in regard to his vote by mail, they issued a statement to CNN saying, as everyone knows, the president is a resident of Palm Beach and participates in Florida elections, but he obviously primarily lives at the White House in Washington, D.C. This is a non-story. Well, we've been talking to voters here all morning, both Republican and Democrats, not only about the election, but also about President Trump's influence in the election, as well as the fact that he voted by mail. And here's some of what we heard.
There's no reason to do by mail.
So do you think President Trump shouldn't have voted by mail?
Correct. I think he shouldn't have. If he's against something, why are you doing it?
Well, I think voting by mail is fine. So, he seems to talk out of both sides of his mouth about it. Like he doesn't like it if it's not going to help Republicans.
I mean, all we can do is vote, right? So vote and pray.
Now, Donald Trump did endorse John Maples, the Republican in this race, calling Maples a very successful businessman and civil leader who is known and loved, adding that he will be a terrific legislator. When I asked some of the voters here, again, both Republicans and Democrats, whether or not Donald Trump is a factor in this race, many of them said they didn't even know that he had endorsed John Maples, and that wasn't really a factor for them, while others did say that was important, that whatever President Donald Trump says, they will do. So the polls are open here in Florida until 7 p.m. tonight, Wolf, and we should have some results after that.
We'll see how that unfolds. Randy Kay on the scene for us. Thank you very, very much.
The President of the United States is voting today and did vote today. He voted by mail. And that is what is the sort of not voting by mail is one of the major things that he has been pressing on, prohibiting that with exceptions as part of the Save America Act. Just listen to what he said yesterday about it.
Mail-in voting means mail-in cheating. I call it mail-in cheating. And we got to do something about it.
Again, he just voted by mail. I will say
Yes.
the White House called this a non-story because he's at the White House and he couldn't possibly get to Florida. He has an important job, but there are other people who have jobs that are hard to get away from, which is why mail-in ballot mail-in voting exists.
Right. I mean, I was about to read the White House statement to you that it's a non-story because the president, in his call to ban mail-in voting, does have these 4 areas that he says should be carved out for exceptions. And for him, it would be travel in this case, since he's not in Florida at the moment.
And he's the president of the United States.
Sure.
That's a big exception.
And he's got things to do in D.C., obviously, a lot of things to attend for today. But just having that flexibility does, bolster the point why this system exists in the first place, because if you want to bolster voting overall, you do have to make it flexible and create these conditions where all people who are eligible to vote can participate.
And the mail voting provision is one of the aspects that is causing the president to lose Republican support in the Senate, because there are Republicans from rural states whose voters would have a real problem without having standardized mail-in voting.
This has been one of the frustrations from Republican Party officials since Donald Trump went on the scene, because they have spent years trying to boost Republican mail-in voting because it helps their numbers, and he continues to call it fraudulent.
President Trump's ongoing battle against mail-in voting may soon be decided. The U.S. Supreme Court is now considering limits on ballots received after Election Day in a critical case that could significantly reshape the upcoming midterm elections. The case could have major implications for deadlines in other states as well that include a grace period. CNN senior legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig is here with me in the Situation Room. So what was your assessment of the arguments that were made at the Supreme Court yesterday?
Well, Wolf, a lot of people across the country who vote by mail ought to get ready to send their ballots in earlier this coming election than they have in the past. Now, at issue yesterday was a Mississippi state law that gives people a 5-day grace period. It says it's okay, as long as your ballot is postmarked by Election Day, it can still be counted if it's received up to 5 days after the election. Now, Mississippi is one of about 14 states across the country that has these grace periods. They can range from 1 day up to 21 days. It's not a red or blue state thing. For example, Mississippi has laws like this, as does Texas. On the other hand, so does California, so does Washington, D.C. Now, the gist of the argument yesterday from the challengers, which the 6 conservative justices seem to agree with, is that Election Day is Election Day. If you allow votes to be counted after the fact, that can lead to confusion. That could even potentially lead to fraud. On the other hand, Mississippi defended its law, and the liberals seem to agree by saying, no, as long as ballots are postmarked by Election Day, states can allow extra time in which to count it. But it sounded to me, Wolf, like this is headed towards the common 6-3 split, and it sounds like these grace periods are likely to be struck down.
Interesting. The Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said the issue comes down to who decides the policy, the states or the Congress.
Yeah.
About 30 states have a grace period that counts ballots mailed by Election Day. Could the states lose power here?
Yeah, for sure. So I think people are familiar with the concept that the Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, says that the states get to choose. Here we see the states may choose the time, place, and manner of holding elections. That's for the states. However, you have to read on here, because the second part of this provision says, but the Congress may at any time by law or alter such regulations. So it's up to the states unless Congress acts. And a key argument yesterday was when Congress enacted Election Day back in the 1870s, the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, did that mean everything has to be over, including the counting? Or did that just mean the ballots have to be cast? And again, the conservatives seem to read that as that means everything. That means the casting and counting of ballots. And that's why I expect these grace periods are going to come to an end. So if you vote in one of those states, get ready to send it in a little earlier.
Yeah, you better get it in before Election Day in order to make sure it's going to be counted. Exactly. If the rules do change, though, will that go into effect by this November's midterms?
Yes, this was specifically addressed yesterday. Justice Kavanaugh asked the challengers, if we strike down these grace periods, are you going to be able to enact them by this midterm? And the answer was yes. We just need about 45 days notice. So even if the Supreme Court rules at the very end of its term, that'll be in June. That's plenty of time. So for November. So these rules could change, and this will impact hundreds of thousands of votes, could impact hundreds of thousands of votes in these midterms coming up November 26th.
We'll see what the Supreme Court decides, although you have a good sense of what they will decide.
As
always, Ellie Honig, thank you
Thanks, Will.
very, very much.